Okay, so I've been debating on whether or not I was going to make this video for a few days now, so if you're seeing it, then there's your answer. Now, this video is going to break a rule that I set for myself way back when I started my channel in 2018, and that was that no matter what, I would never get political on YouTube. I'm a very opinionated person. You probably know that if you watch my videos at all, but I've always wanted my YouTube channel to remain free of anything political because I want this to be a space that no matter your political belief or affiliation, race, creed, religion, we can all sort of come together on a common interest of guitar and music and making music. That's sort of the overarching theme of my channel, and that will remain the case after this video is done. But I wanted to make this video because I think there is an important part of this conversation that, at least from what I've seen, is kind of getting glossed over. And I want to make sure that we're not forgetting about that. So let's talk about it. A quick plug though, this channel is supported by my video courses. You can find a link to all of the video courses that I've made in the description box down below. And we're actually running a sale on my flagship course, Fretboard Fundamentals Ultimate. So if you want more information about that and you want to support the channel, please click that link down below and subscribe while you're down there. Let me grab a guitar. So this is a Fender Ultra 2 Stratocaster. This is an American made in USA Fender Stratocaster. It's a fantastic guitar. Now I say made in USA, and if you're like me and you grew up in the late 90s, 2000s, you remember when Fender said made in USA on the headstock, or in this case, the back of the headstock. But if you look closely here, it says Corona, California. Now that's a relatively recent change that Fender has made, and based off of what I have read, it has to do with California's laws and regulations around what qualifies as something being made in USA. Now, interestingly, when Fender launched this guitar last year, they invited me out to be a part of the sort of launch process. It was a lot of fun. My wife Tilly and I got to go tour the factory in Corona, California, which was super cool. And I saw, this as well as many other Fender guitar models being made with a combination of machines and actual people doing work by hand there in Southern California. They're building the guitars in the factory in the USA. So if that's the case, then why does this no longer say made in USA on the headstock? Why did they change it to Corona, California? So this is according to trade.gov. I'll have this linked in the description box down below if you want to read it. This says, under current Federal Trade Commission guidelines, a product may be advertised as made in the USA if all or virtually all of the labor and materials in the product are domestic. While this standard is relatively strict, it allows a bit of flexibility in at least two situations. First, if the product is fully manufactured in the US, primarily from US materials, but with a very small amount of foreign content, the FTC standard allows the product to be described as made in the USA. Second, the advertiser has the option to soften or qualify its made in USA claim by disclosing, for example, that the product is made in the US with foreign and domestic materials. California has enacted a statute which prohibits using a made in USA claim if any part of the product is foreign sourced. However, the strict standard was modified in September 2015. The new standard allows products sold in California to be marked as made in USA or made in America when a small part of the product's contents are of foreign origin, as long as the foreign materials or parts do not exceed 5% of the final wholesale value of the merchandise. If the manufacturer of the merchandise can show that it cannot obtain the materials or parts in the United States, then the total foreign content cannot exceed 10% of the final wholesale value of the item. Now, I don't know whether or not this Stratocaster qualifies under those guidelines, and I'm not going to make a claim as to whether or not it does. Maybe Fender changed the label just to be safe. But what I do know is that I was impressed with how much manufacturing was actually happening inside Fender's Corona factory. Like, they have giant machines that they've owned since the beginning of Fender. From what I was told, they were the original machines that Leo and company were using in the late 50s that were stamping steel for ashtray bridges and bridge plates. A lot of the actual hardware on this guitar is made in-house. They're winding the pickups for most of the models there. Or let's take a look at a Gibson. This is a Gibson Les Paul. It was made in Nashville, Tennessee. And much like Fender, I have been to the Gibson factory, both the USA factory and the custom shop in Nashville. And the thing that I was struck by was the fact that, again, this is an American company manufacturing an American product with American employees. And they're doing many of the processes of building this guitar by hand. They're hand wrapping the binding on the body. And after the guitar comes out of finishing, there are ladies with razor blades hand scraping all of the binding of every Les Paul or every bound guitar that comes off of that line. So this is truly an American-made instrument, much like the Stratocaster. But to go back to the Strat example here, you may think like, well, this is a mostly American-made guitar, mostly American-made components in here they're building in-house. The price of these probably won't go up all that much. So sure, let's say for the sake of argument that everything in this guitar was sourced from the United States and was built and assembled in the United States. It's not, but for the sake of argument. Then you might be tempted to think, well, then in that case, this will be fine. The price of a Ultra 2 Stratocaster probably won't go up. But what about the sandpaper that they use spools and spools of in the factory every day? That's probably not made in America. What about the light bulbs that they use to light the factory floor to work on all day? That stuff needs to be replaced. What about the computers and the printers and the paper and everything that it takes to run the sort of administrative side of the business, of a business like this, the logistics of it? What about the case? That case is not made in the United States. Or what about the packing material, the cardboard, the plastic, the tape, the labels, the shipping labels, the label maker? All of that stuff comes from other countries. And all of those things are necessary to run any kind of business where you're manufacturing, whether it's a guitar, a pedal, or anything else. When the price of all of that stuff goes up, your operating cost as a business goes up with it, and therefore your margin shrinks. And if the margin shrinks to a point where you can't afford to make payroll, you can't afford to continue to turn a profit as a business, then something's got to give. And what's more than likely to happen is the price of the guitars, the pedals, the amps, whatever, will go up. And in the case of the American brands that are still manufacturing in the United States, which, as I understand it, is sort of the point of these tariffs, is to bring manufacturing jobs back to the States. Well, these companies are still doing it here. They're still building guitars here. It's still going to impact the overall price. And when you combine that with the fact that that's going to hit every sector of our economy and the buying power that people have goes down, it's not looking great. This is a Mythos pedal. This is the Mythos Joey Landreth High Road Fuzz. Mythos is an American company based in Nashville, Tennessee, building pedals in Nashville, Tennessee. This is my good friend and podcast co-host, Zach Broyles, founded, owns, and operates Mythos pedals to this day. This whole company is 3 people, Zach, Matthew, and Jeff. That's the whole company. This is a JHS pedal. This is the JHS Morning Glory. Also owned and operated and founded by a good friend of mine, Josh Scott. Now, JHS is one of the biggest pedal manufacturers in the world at this point. I don't know exactly where they are, but I believe they're in the top 5 at least. And this company, which is quite a bit bigger than Mythos pedals, last I heard was somewhere in the range of 40 to 50 employees. Point that I'm trying to make here is that our industry, the guitar industry, and even the larger MI space, music instrument space, is dominated by small businesses. Yes, you have your big players, you have your Fenders, your Gibsons, Boss, Roland, but as many of those big corporations that exist, there's even more small businesses that are the backbone of the industry. This is not just gear we're talking about. This is people's livelihoods. When you buy a Mythos pedal, you're literally putting money in the pocket of those 3 people. You're putting food on their table, you're providing healthcare and home insurance and mortgage for those 3 people. This is not an ad for Mythos or JHS or anything, by the way. I'm just using this as an illustration. And I think this point gets lost a lot online when we're talking about this stuff, when we're talking about gear, or we're talking about the potential impact of the tariffs. That, yes, it's just guitar gear, right? They're just guitar pedals. It's just a new amp or whatever. But the reality is that this is people's livelihoods. This is people's careers. This is people's businesses that they've started, in Josh and Zach's case, literally in a shed or a garage in their free time outside of working full time. They've started these businesses and built them up to be what they are today. And you would be shocked at how many well-known brands there are out there that are operated with less than 10 people. I'm thinking of one amp brand off the top of my head. I won't name them, but a well-known American amp brand, legacy amp brand, the whole company is 7 people. I had no idea until I found out recently. I thought they were way bigger than that. The fact of the matter is that most of these businesses are providing good livings for the people that run them and work for them, but people are not getting rich off of building and selling guitar pedals. In fact, if you saw Josh Scott's response video late last year to John Cordy's video about the cost of manufacturing pedals, you saw that illustrated in great detail of what it actually costs to run one of these businesses. And this is the thing that really pisses me off about these tariffs and this whole situation. And I'm going to do my best to not launch into a political tirade here. But if things come to pass with these tariffs, as it looks as though they might at the moment, we're probably going to lose a lot of the brands that we love, because these businesses are already operating on tight margins as it is. This is going to affect all of us economically, whether you live in the United States or not. And people are going to be strapped financially. And like I mentioned, if it comes down to buying groceries or paying my mortgage or buying a new fuzz, I know what I'm going to pick. And that really sucks, because it's not just, a guitar pedal. It's not just a fuzz. It's not just, a tube amp or a Strat. This is people's livelihoods and their businesses. There's more here than just the gear. And that's the part that I worry about with this stuff moving forward. So what can we do? What is there to do? It's hard to say. If you're an American citizen, you're watching this, you can call your representative. You can call your congressperson. You can call your senator. I'll leave a link in the description to where you can find the contact information for your representative. This stuff does work, by the way. If you think it doesn't, it does work. And when you make your voice heard, it can and oftentimes does have a real impact. And then in the short term, if it makes sense for you, I think you can choose to support a lot of these businesses. You can choose to buy gear from businesses that you want to support, from the small businesses and the people that run them. Because again, a lot of these companies are a lot smaller than you think. We tend to forget that there are people behind these products. There are people behind all this stuff. And this, in many cases, is people's whole livelihood. This is their life. This is their career. This is their life's work, their passion. It may just be a guitar pedal, but for someone else, it is everything. So yeah, I want to know your thoughts on this. Again, I'm not an economist. I don't even have a college degree. I'm just a dude that plays guitar on the internet and sometimes live. Let's keep it civil though, please, if we can. I know that we're treading into the world of politics, and like I said, that goes against my own rule that I set for myself years ago, but let's keep it civil and constructive if we can. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. My name is Rhett Scholl. I will catch you real soon on the next one.